Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Harry Buffett. Welcome back to another Starcraft 2 Daily Masters. We're continuing to go through the WCS Grand Final series of games, and we finished all the round of 16, I do believe. So now we are getting back into the quarterfinals, I believe. Round of 8 quarterfinals, 8 people. So yes, going to be awesome. Once again, I've been saying this for the other types of games I played, but this is the first Daily Masters I've done at my new place. So I've kind of slacked off a little bit. I had like a week of games done in advance by the time I moved, and my internet got hooked up in like a few days. So I'm just like, yeah, I'll just sit back. Still got like 5 days of games, so I just sit back. And it doesn't really matter anymore because my internet's really reliable and it can upload a lot faster. Like I get the full 1 megabits, whereas the old house I only got like half a megabit. Yes, it's still stupidly low by international standards, but that's Australia for you. So at least it's solid. It's not going to drop out halfway through the night. So that is going to be good. How did that Reaper somehow find that worker to attack when the worker was right in the middle of all this junk? That's almost impossible to select the worker at that point, but did manage to do it. And I think that Reaper actually got 2 kills, man, a Marine and an SCV. Very nice work from our man, Mr. Bomber, down the bottom right-hand side of the map. I suppose I should start introducing people. But Bomber, down there, he beat Zedong 3-2 in the round of 16 to make it to this position. And he's looking good here. And his opponent, Mr. MMA, is over here on this side of the map. So, sending a Hellion out there now. And I'm guessing the Hellion is going to beat the Reaper. I don't think there's any doubt, but the Reaper is doing a fairly decent job of actually... That was a lot closer than I would have thought, man. The Reaper did quite a lot of damage to that Hellion. And Bomber... he's got 2 Hellions of his own. That should be enough. There we go, the Hellion goes down. So Mr. MMA, 26 years of age from South Korea, plays for Team Acer. And he got to this point in the tournament by beating Stardust 3-1 in the round of 16. And now I believe it's the first TvT of the tournament so far. We will be seeing another TvT later on between Tasia and Innovation, which should be awesome. So yeah, TvT is all over the place. I should mention in this series, it's a best of 5, as all the other ones are. And Bomber has so far won 1 game. So Bomber is probably feeling pretty good at this point about winning that game. MMA, of course, hasn't won a single game yet. And we'll be starting to think about shifting the momentum here. But, of course, we are only going to be casting this 1 game, not all of them, because that would take freaking forever. So, let's go ahead and start checking out this game. I actually got a replay pack from the whatchamacallit, the OSC finals as well, the Starcraft 2 SCA OSC finals, the Oceanic Starcraft tournament that happened last year. They sent me the replays for those, so I'll be doing quite a bit of those because I do believe, in addition to all of the regular players that played in the OSC, like all of the Australian players, all of the players who've been, really active, there were also a bunch of international players invited, like I think Tasia and Gumio, who I'm not too familiar with, but apparently he did really well in that tournament. And a whole bunch of other guys as well. So it should be interesting to see some of those games. And yes, got some nice tank pressure here. We got a bunker. MMA really doing a great job here. He sort of got screwed on the air, but that was just a harassment unit, so that's fine. And this fast tank push doing a really nice job. There's the second tank. He's going to have to lift this up. He's not repairing it, which is probably a wise idea because I don't think he's going to be able to repair it. So he's just building up. There we go. He's got a bunch of Hellbats. And is he going to be moving out? There he goes. Lifts it up. And there go the Hellbats moving out there. We should be able to soak up a bit of tank damage. The bunker is going to be a little bit hard to take out, but he does manage to get it down. The tank's going to go down. There's too much Hellbat damage, and they're just too beefy. The Banshee actually getting out there as well and hitting some stuff. But the Vikings are back up in the air, and a scan. We'll see MMA dead here. Oh man, I think the missiles are actually going to hit him. Is that what happens if missiles are on your way to you and you move outside of the scan range? Do the missiles just miss automatically? I think that's the case. It's not the case of if they can see you, then they fire the missiles and then you disappear, the missiles stay locked on. I think the missiles actually don't do damage at that point because you've gone outside of scan range while the missiles are in mid-air, and they sort of lose lock. I don't know if Viking missiles really have a lock at all. I suppose they do, because if you're moving, the missiles sort of follow you. So yeah, I suppose they do have lock. And yeah, if you move out of scan range, then they sort of lose lock, which is pretty awesome. I'm guessing that happens with any sort of non-instantaneous sort of firepower sort of deal. I think I've seen it. I don't know if we've actually seen it with Marauders, but maybe we have. Definitely we've seen it with Vikings now. So anyway, let's have a look at the state of the game here. Bomber 5 workers behind, which is unfortunate. He's got a ton of Hellbats in the medevacs, which is very, very nice. The Banshee coming across once again. The missile turret is up. Should be able to spot that Banshee quite easily. What's he going to go for now? There's a missile turret over there, so he's not going to be able to get in there. He's going to spot something on the very edge, kill the SCV building the factory. Very, very nice work there. And Bomber hasn't really gone for the standard sort of TvT sort of build, which is either you get a Banshee or you get a Raven and you block. Because if you're not getting a Banshee, then you're getting a Raven because you're assuming the other person is getting a Banshee. Which, you know, a lot of Terran players do it, and we can see why in this game, because MMA did go for a Banshee, and Bomber has had some trouble dealing with it because he didn't get a Raven. So it starts to make sense after a while to get that sort of play going on. Here we go. A bunch of Marines covered out, scaring the Vikings away straight away. They're looking for just a bit of a scout at this point. They might be able to take that Viking out. They've definitely got the DPS, but of course Marines are going to be very, very scary. And there are tanks all over the place actually. There's a tank over there, a couple of tanks over there. I like this rear ground defensive tank. He's obviously expecting Hellbat drops and leaving that up there to deal with them, and not expecting a major assault at his front gate. So that's why he's not moving every single tank down there, leaving one up the top to defend. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Might as well do it. And it's going to be looking good. So Bomber searching for an edge any way he can. We can see him going for the third base. And it's going to be awesome if he can... well, it's going to be awesome for workers anyway, though. He is supply capped right now. Very, very, very unfortunate. But he's actually a little bit in front on the workers count. 45 over 43. So not doing that bad. His army size is starting to slip a little bit. I think MMA got an early advantage off that original attack he did. If you look at the units lost, MMA actually behind on this. So he's actually lost more resources, but he's still ahead on the army. So I think he may have just had a earlier push on the worker numbers. And Bomber is just kind of catching up. It's the only way, this is the only thing I can think of, but Bomber is definitely going to start pushing out in the lead with this third base now. Assuming that he starts pushing the workers out as fast as he can. Nice little attack here. It's just straight up Marine Rorder. No tanks visible in this army. But the rest of them thinking about moving out. There we go. 3 tanks, 4 tanks, so 5 tanks. So that is a lot of artillery. And Bomber, it looks like he's going for full mech at this stage. He's already got level 1 weapons. He's putting his tanks up. This is a nice position for those tanks to be in. You may see some tanks over here sort of sniping each other up the maximum gap. MMA, it looks like he's splitting his forces. This is awesome, awesome play. No, he's just going to concatenate them right there. The Hellbats moving in, but the Hellbats are moving into a pretty horrible position. So many Marines. So there were a few Marauders, but I think they mostly were down. And you can see those Hellbats got absolutely massacred. But they did do a fair bit of damage. And Bomber is going to have to really move fast here to deal with this massive drop over here. 2 tanks, they're going to get a bit of support from the bottom. Not a huge amount, but enough to take this tank out, which is definitely going to suck. Forced to move his SCVs over there to take out the tanks, and is going to be able to take them out. But how many workers have been going down there? It's got to be a bit, not as much as I would have thought, but still, Bomber, actually, yeah, Bomber is now 10 workers down. MMA has taken a 10 worker advantage. It's kind of backwards lopsy-do because Bomber is down the bottom side, but his icon's up the top. So that's confusing me a little bit. Yeah, but still, MMA moving out. I don't think he's really got enough of a punch anymore, though. Bomber throwing those turn workers in, and just having the reinforcement advantage here is going to be able to hold this off. Thinking about doing something down here. Nice setup with the siege tank to be shooting that, but we do have tanks almost ready for it, but they're only just now going to be getting up. Is this tank in range? He might be. Where's the air support? Bomber needs some scouting over there to see that sort of stuff. I think his tank is in range, but he desperately needs that air cover. There we go, and MMA not going for the last little hit on this tank, decides to fall back and does save his tank by doing it. He's been beefing up the Marauder numbers quite a lot, which I like to see, because they were very good against the Hellbats, but they just died so quickly. I think that Bomber just focused them down, and once it was just Marine tank, MMA was not as effective as he could be, but now he's really beefed up the Marauder numbers, and he's really, really looking to do a heavy amount of damage to this mech army from Bomber. You can see it continuing to come in. There is a tank over there. It's going to be out of range, so Bomber very effectively guarding the third base, but sort of leaving the natural a little bit undefended. MMA is going to get right in there, going to do a lot of stuff, and Bomber moving units out again. I'm not sure if he really needs to do. He's hoping to repair a building or something like that, but he did end up losing a few more workers there, I do believe. He's down to a total of 38 workers lost versus only 2 for MMA. And it's a kind of a standoff here. We've got 2 tanks and a bunch of guys over there. MMA, I don't know what he can do at this point. So Bomber, I don't know what he can do. He's got a bunch of Hellbats. A couple of them have landed in there, which is very nice. So that's going to be knocking back the worker numbers for MMA a little bit. And Bomber has caught up. So his worker numbers are not too bad, but he's still a little bit all over the shop in terms of making things happen at his home base. Although this attack out here is definitely going to make things happen a lot better. Although look at this crap. We've got a drop over here. We've got a nice drop over there. We've got units continuing to go over there. So MMA has hit back with a couple of awesome drops of his own. Really looking to do some damage, and Bomber seems unable to do anything about it. He's knocked back this drop. Where are the units to take care of this drop? They are only just coming now. These guys have had like 30 seconds, almost a minute, I'd say, just sitting here doing whatever the hell they want. And yeah, so MMA seems, I mean, MMA took a couple of harassment hits and he just hit back really, really hard. And it did quite a lot here. If we have a look, the income is definitely been lost. So any advantage that Bomber may have bought with his drops has been completely destroyed by MMA's own drops. And MMA is just going to go straight back to this harassment with the tanks, taking out the gas, doing all sorts of stuff. Realizes the medevac is doing something dodgy, does take it out. Didn't even see the Hellbat getting dropped off at the last second, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it definitely looks like MMA is ready to turn this game around. So I don't know how MMA lost in the first game, but he's looking very, very strong in the second game. And Bomber, man, still must have lost a ton of supply defense or something like that, because his supply is not looking good at all. There we go, some scanning, some nice range for those tanks. A tank getting taken out for MMA. He's going to be falling back, but he's still looking pretty good at this point. No upgrades for his tanks, but I think the Marine Marauder is what he really cares about. And Bomber, of course, has 2-1 with level 2 armor on the way, so he's going to be looking pretty good on those tanks. We'll just have to see how it goes. MMA pushing nice and hard on the workers, getting up to a nice level, and he's just going for a ton of upgrades, getting a ton of units. Income-wise he's ahead, army-wise he's ahead. He's been ahead for pretty much the entire game, I think. I've never really seen a point where he's been behind in this game. And now look at this drop going past, getting past the missile turret, dropping down there. There is 2 tanks and a medevac, and a drop coming down, actually dropping off a whole bunch of stuff. But the Marauders are going to be very, very effective. They're doing a very good job, and they're continuing on. Look at all these tanks coming out of the factory, and they're getting owned straight away by this Marauder heavy drop force. That's almost 3 tanks that have been taken out, 2, and almost got this one, but not quite. So those drops, man, Marauder's just so good against mech, absolutely phenomenally good. And Bomber is finding out just why mech is a little bit hard to play in TvT, because the Hellbats are really, really great against units like Marauders, but you've got to have them out there. And yeah, there weren't really all that many Hellbats to deal with the Marauders there. There were kind of just a couple, and there was quite a lot of Marauders, and they just owned the Hellbats straight away, and they went to work on the tanks. I mean, if it's armored damage versus armored damage, you can't throw tanks against Marauders. I think tanks do extra damage to armored. I believe they do. I can't remember. I don't think they do any extra in siege damage, in siege mode, but maybe in normal mode they do. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, the tanks just, no, they are, I think they're pretty much officially countered by the Marauders. So there's just no chance there. There we go, getting these rocks down. Hellbat coming out, roasting a few things. Dropship with a couple more Hellbats coming in there. No missile turret. There is a bunker though, and it fills up very, very, very fast. That's it. Medevac about to go down. The Hellbats are down, but the bunker doing an exceptional job of just completely destroying those guys. Another drop coming through. MMA, I don't know if he spotted it. Yes, he did. Only 2 Marines in that force though, so he's going to be very hard pressed to actually destroy the Medevacs, but the Hellbats are definitely going to die. And I love the fact that MMA is picking up so many of these drops. And the bunker didn't really pick up the drop, but it defended against it beautifully. And this little drop over here, just waiting. I don't know what he was waiting for, but he managed to spot that drop coming in. And it's just beautiful, man. MMA really, really looking good all around the map. Whereas Bomber is sort of sitting back in his own base, doing his own thing, occasionally sending medevacs out. But MMA really has a wider sort of map awareness where he's sort of looking all over the place, trying to find things out. He can't be everywhere at once, but he's getting out there. He's saying, this is my map. If you want to harass my base, you've got to sneak past all of my scouting units out there. And yeah, so far we have seen a couple of pickups from MMA actually catching those units moving out, which is very, very awesome and not something you see all that often. So have a look at the income. MMA ahead, 65 over 57. Both players on 2 bases, and he's actually got 4 orbitals here. I would have thought 4th base maybe a planetary from one of these guys, but I guess the 4th base just sort of tucked in there. So it's still defensible-ish. So I guess that's why it's not a planetary. If it was like out here or something, almost certainly it would be a planetary. But for now, we've got another drop coming out, getting a whole bunch of Hellbats. Bomber still going nuts on the mech. And MMA, of course, still going nuts on everything else. So if we have a look here, he's got 19 Marauders, which is not bad. Could have more, of course, but he's really pumping out a lot of tanks at the moment. So he's feeling like he needs a lot more siegey type damage, maybe, to sort of smash the crap out of everything. And we've got a pretty major engagement coming up here. The tanks lining up at the very, very edge, looking for an angle. And we're probably going to be seeing scans all over the place. There we go, going in for a push. The Hellbats moving in. The tank forces of MMA are not actually pushing back these forces too easily. The Marauders coming in and they wipe up the Hellbats, but quite a few tanks went down for MMA before those Hellbats went down. So Bomber with a nice little push there, definitely killed more tanks than he lost. His Hellbats pretty much thrown away, but I think he can afford to throw them away if it gets him 10 kills. So let's have a look. Bomber also looks like he is going to take the air advantage. He's going to be hitting the medevacs nice and hard. Moving in there, getting a nice push from his tanks as well. And MMA starting to look a little bit flustered on this tank line. He's got a nice drop in here though that Bomber has to run back to deal with. I don't know if that's going to happen. It looks like the base is going to go down. And Bomber continuing to push up with his tanks bit by bit. There's not really a lot of tank DPS from MMA, and it's not beautifully placed anymore since it was cut down. So he's going to be falling back. And look at this, 6 Marauders at a time. So he's obviously not going to be relying on the tanks too much. He's just building up a crap ton of Marauders, and he wants to go in there and just directly hit with his Triple M, which makes sense because he's got 3-3 on the Triple M and only 1 weapon on the tank. So if it's a tank versus tank battle, he's not going to be able to play with Bomber, who currently has 3-2 on his mech and is looking so powerful on those tanks. So MMA is just going to be focusing on the Marauders, which I really like, and he's still okay, as yeah, I don't know. He's still okay as far as the medevacs goes sometimes. It depends on where the Vikings are. He's managing to get everywhere though, going all over the place, getting in the backside. Didn't go for those tanks. I thought the Marauders would have tried to take out the tanks at the last second, but decided not to. And Bomber really relying on his Viking force to deal with those medevacs. He's taken them out. Now he's going to be landing all these forces in these little groups, just sort of at the back of nowhere, just focusing on getting units down. Actually managed to kill everything they're aiming for, and if they could snipe some reinforcing tanks, that is going to be awesome. It looks like they may be all over here though, but that's about it. Couple of drops coming down here. The missile turret going to be owning those medevacs a little bit, but drops down over here, kills a bunch of workers who were just sort of sitting over in the middle of nowhere, not doing much. And we can see a shift here. Bomber's starting to lose a lot more units in these engagements. His army is starting to look a little bit bedraggled. His income is starting to look a little bit bedraggled. And now we're going to see the Marauders go to work. Look at these Marauders go. They're doing an exceptional job. They're soaking up quite a bit of damage. And there we go. Finishing it off, just running in with a massive amount of Marauders. MMA was building up to that for some time, I feel like. And eventually, he finally said, yep, that's it. I need a crap load of Marauders. I need them to run in and own all of the tanks. And eventually that's what happened. The Hellbat numbers just weren't enough to keep the Marauders back. Let's have a look there, because I don't know how many Hellbats there were in that final battle. I feel like there weren't that many, because usually Hellbats are the damage soakers for a mech force, and you need quite a bit of them, because otherwise you get overwhelmed by Marauders. And I think that's what just happened. So if we have a look here, the tanks, what are they doing? They're falling back just a little bit, almost at the end of the game. There we go. They're going to move out again. What Hellbat numbers do we have? We have a total of 7 Hellbats. And here we go, the tanks. I mean, it's just no Hellbat support. The Hellbats are all trapped up the back. And that's it. GG, man. If he had proper Hellbat support, I think he would have lasted a little bit longer there. Maybe enough for his tanks to do the damage to the Marauders, but still, that many Marauders, very hard to knock back as a mech force, because the Marauders count every single unit in your army, so you really got to have a lot of Hellbats to stand any chance against that many Marauders. And unfortunately, Bomber had pretty much 0 at the end. So that's unfortunate, but there we go. MMA has won that game, and he in fact won the next 2 after that, which took him to 3-1 against Bomber, and he will be moving on. Our next series to be cast tomorrow is going to be Hero versus Classic, and that is actually a PvP, which is going to be awesome. So look forward to checking that out and see which one of those 2 guys will face MMA in the semi-finals, and I will catch you guys then. Stay tuned.